Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Steve Foxcroft. Jocelyn Banford is on assignment this week. Each week, we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert in their field to tell their story. And I'm very excited to have this week's guest join us. I've known him and his family for many years. He's an award-winning comedian. He's an actor. We're going to hear he's also an author. He's about to set out on a Canadian tour, and we'll get to a whole bunch of that and more. Eric Johnston on the set with us. Eric, thanks for being here.
I was so excited. I leaned forward. My big schnoz got in your shot. We'll have to cut around that.
We'll get around it. We'll get around it. Between the two of us, we do well in photo finishes.
The nose knows.
Exactly. So I mentioned you grew up in a family of professional wrestlers.
Correct.
I knew your granddad. I knew your dad. They both passed on.
Yep.
But tell us about what that was like.
It was like the circus. You know what I mean? My childhood was like young rock. You know, there was always characters around, and Johnny Canine, who was a half professional wrestler, half career criminal, was coming by the house. I had the bushwhackers swimming in my pool as a kid. I have these pictures when I was a kid, like, hey, come get a picture with Daddy's friend Randy. Come get a picture with Daddy's friend Paul. Turns out it was Macho Man Randy Savage and The Big Show. And I have these memories of wrestling events and touring around with my dad. It was just amazing. And it set me up for the blueprint of the man and entertainer that I am today. So,
and you're doing that in Canada as a Canadian, which presents challenges that I want to get to in a little bit. But to set that up, tell us then, you have all these people going on, but what triggered it? At what age when you said, I want to be a comedian and I want to do it for a living?
Yeah, I mean, doing it for a living has only come, in the last 5 years, because I've been doing it for a living. I've been a comic for 13 years across North America. For me as a kid, you had to be funny. There were so many characters around, and there were so many people, and, it was like the circus, like I said. So if you wanted to get in, you had to be funny. Like, if you were telling a story and you were funny, someone was going to interrupt you to tell you a better story or travels on the road and stuff. And I realized that when I was funny, and that I was outgoing, and if I was loud, and if I was big, that I would get the attention of my friends, my family, the characters around the house, the bushwhackers, so that for me was a very, easy transition as a kid. Of course, I was the class clown, and of course, I was always running around doing whatever I could to entertain people. Eventually everyone just went out and got jobs. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to try this comedy thing full time, and I have not looked back since.
Your dad and your granddad were both professional wrestlers. Yeah. They had the ring in our warehouse, and they would come in and practice and so on. But what then said to you, or what made you make the decision consciously that you didn't want to get into wrestling? You wanted to be funny.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the bumps and bruises that my dad had, and he'd come home from the road, and it was basically my job when he'd come home from the road. I would put Rub 8535 on his back. I was like a cabana boy, but my hands were numb for most of the 1990s. Wow. And I saw the long days and the long roads and the road trips and going out and not making a ton of money. And for me, it was just like, I want to be an entertainer, but I don't know how. When I was a kid, I couldn't become a professional wrestler. There was little people wrestlers, but I couldn't wrestle them. So I got into competitive dance. From dance, I went into musical theater. From musical theater, I went into straight theater. From theater, I went into acting for film and television. And on November 1st, 2010, I did my first open mic comedy night. And again, I haven't stopped since.
And at that point, it was just to supplement an income? Is that what it was to start with?
I had jobs, bartending. I sold gym memberships at Good Life Fitness, and I, quit after a month because I couldn't handle the rules of, you got to be on time. And I'm a worker. I'm an entertainer. I mean, this is what I wrote recently in the book. Being an entertainer is my sole purpose and my soul's purpose. It's really everything that I throw everything at it. My entire life is for show business, and it's really coming together. I mean, I make as much now as if I was working in the trades. All my friends are working in the trades, and I'm making as much money as them, but I get to watch The Price is Right every day.
Yeah, that's right. Like we all did growing up from school.
Of course.
Some of the other things that you did, you've branched out, you're into acting and other things like that. And one of the things you did recently I found very fascinating, and that was you were on the Family Feud. So
yeah, I'll go through it quickly. So they reached out to me directly and said, how would you like to be on Family Feud? I thought they were just asking me, hey, come be on Family Feud. And I said, we would love to. And they said, great. you got to fill out this form, you got to submit an audition video, you got to do this interview, you got to do that. And turns out we were on the show, and it was an amazing experience. I'll never forget it. And we got to honor my dad on the show. We were Team Bullwhip. So
awesome. So
yeah.
let's talk more about that. Then we'll take a break. We'll be back. Eric Johnston, Canadian comedian, is with us. Stay tuned.